T-minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Movies and Beyond. Once again, I am Michael, and today it's Walking Dead Day. I'm super excited about talking about The Walking Dead once again, considering I just finished up not too terribly long ago, I guess it's been about a week ago now that I finished up watching the entire series for the second time around. And I did notice watching it the second time that there was a whole bunch of stuff that I missed. So to rewind a little bit back when I was talking about when I watched it the original time and I quit watching it and then I went back in, after a while, I think that there was a big section that I might have missed the first time around because it didn't, a lot of the stuff didn't seem too familiar to me. Like some of the parts I didn't remember too terribly well, which was kind of crazy. So in a way, it was, some parts of it felt like I was watching it for the first time. But then again, let's not forget, I am getting a little older, so I could have just clearly forgotten about it as well too. So let me check on who's in the chat here, because I'm definitely excited to get started with The Walking Dead today. Russell Dorsey in the chat saying, "What's up, everyone? I smashed that like button before I came in this awesome stream. And chat, happy Thursday to everyone. Happy Thursday, my man. Always glad to have you here, bud." Russell is saying the governor is one of the craziest villains besides Negan and the Whisperers. However you spell it, it actually looks good to me. It looks right. Daryl was bad at first, but then he became good. And I don't think that a lot of people remember that. I don't think that a lot of people remember that Daryl and Merle's initial intention was to rob everyone. Of course, when they get back together, and I think it was season 3. Yeah, I think it was season 3. They get back together, and Merle was telling him, like, don't forget, we were going to rob these people. And Daryl's like, yeah, well, it didn't happen. So, yeah, but not a lot of people know that. Callie is in the chat saying, "What's up, everyone? What's going on, Callie? What is going on?" So without further ado, I really don't have too much to talk about as far as, new news from The Walking Dead, because I haven't, heard any other than, the Negan and Maggie show coming out in June, which I'm really excited about. But as far as I know, I don't think there's a release date on the Daryl show yet. And I do know that the Rick and Michonne is supposed to be early 2024. So we definitely have a little ways to go on that one before, that comes through. But let me go ahead and roll this intro and we'll go ahead and get started. I'll be right back.
Jones messed with the wrong melon farmers. Thug life. And here we go.
I prayed that he would burn in hell, but in my heart, I knew that hell would not have him.
Then I will avenge his death.
Hello, Sydney. Are you
Don't you
For
wish I had you all alone. Just the two of us.
Oh, okay. So, like, I think that have I been muted this whole time? That sucks. Oh my goodness. Okay. So, you guys let me know in the chat if I have been muted this entire time because that would completely suck. Like, seriously. Let's see. Let's see. Where are we at here? But anyway, so without going all the way back and talking about everything, that I missed here. So let's see. Wow, that's like a ways to go back to. I'm sorry about that, guys. Um it seems like whenever I run that intro, for some reason, it gets put on mute. And even though I click the unmute the first time, it doesn't always take me off. So until I figure out that technical difficulty, I will rely on you guys to let me know in the chat, if you can't hear anything. So I don't know if it has something to do with StreamYard or if I'm doing something different, which I don't think that I am. But yeah, so to make a long story short of probably the last like 5 minutes, um, um, where I was talking about, God, we talked about a lot of things. Well, I did. I talked about a lot of things, a lot of comments I went through. But definitely back to the Lost Boys comment that I was talking about with the music and everything. Yeah, I absolutely love the Lost Boys. And not only did I love the Lost Boys as a movie, I absolutely love the soundtrack. So it was definitely, I can't really remember the song, the title, the name of the song in the Lost Boys I love so much, but everybody knows the one song from the Lost Boys. It was just, um, it was freaking amazing, and it always takes me right back to the movie as well. So, it's definitely awesome. Yes. So Wayne has put it up. Cry Little Sister. That's exactly what it was called. So, definitely fantastic. But a lot of the Walking Dead stuff that I wanted to talk about today, that we didn't really get into, in prior Walking Dead streams that we've done, was I definitely want to dive into the Whispers today. Get into that like season 9 atmosphere, because we went through a lot of the Negan stuff. We went through a lot of the early Walking Dead stuff with like Rick and Shane and Andrea. It was freaking fantastic. But I think that, after the second time watch for me, I think that, as much as I love Negan, don't get me wrong, it's still one of my favorite characters in The Walking Dead. Um, that the Whispers might be my favorite group that they fought. Now, again, Negan, let's not jump on it and say Michael says that the Whispers are better than Negan. So I'm not saying that whatsoever. I think that with the Saviors, being uh as long as it was, I feel like it kind of got drowned out. Um, like it was just it just got drawn out so much that I almost became like, oh, okay, God, we're still on this, So, um, Wayne, I am looking at um your comment here. Let me see. Oh wait, no, it was Callie. I'm sorry. He is saying, where can I watch the Lost Boys at without cable? I'm not really sure about that. That's definitely something that I would have to look into to find out for sure. Um, but yeah, it's I'm not sure. But if anybody can help him out, that would be fantastic. Callie is saying, I did not hear you talk about my comment. Callie, if you could just throw your comment back up there, I would happily talk about it again. Because it's kind of really hard for me to scroll back at this point. I'm sure I addressed it. And if you just throw it up there one more time, I got you. Wayne is saying, I've never watched The Walking Dead. I've seen Love Actually, that Andrew Lincoln was in. You should definitely check out The Walking Dead. It's a good watch. It definitely keeps you interested. There are a few longer drawn out, portions of the show. But for the most part, when it was over, I was really happy that I watched it. Russell is saying, what was Daryl's brother's name at the beginning? Well, that was Merle. Merle was Daryl's brother. Callie was saying it was about the Lost Boys. Okay. All right. So was that just where you wanted to be able to see it at? Was it that you wanted to talk a little bit about the Lost Boys? I mean, I'm always down to talk about the Lost Boys too. That's actually one of my favorite 80s horror movies. Like it's up there. I'm not gonna say it was my favorite, but it's definitely top 10. I actually love the Lost Boys. Wayne is saying I have every George A. Romero Dead movie on DVD. That's pretty cool. That sounds like a fun collection to have for sure. Definitely. All right. So I think that I'm caught up in the comments. Again, I do apologize for the technical difficulties I had a little earlier. But yeah, hopefully we can move forward from that for just a little bit and get moving on the Walking Dead stuff. Wayne is also saying I've seen the bad sequels of the Lost Boys. Yeah, unfortunately, I have too. But I don't know if I can really remember. I remember the one that brought Corey Haim and Corey Feldman back. And even that one, it just didn't feel like, nothing's going to recapture the original. The original was something different. And I'm not saying that they were horrible, but at the same time, I don't think that they captured that original thing that you had with, the original. Like I just feel like it was up here. And even though some of the sequels weren't bad, they were, they weren't measuring too well with what the original did. Teresa's saying the Whispers season was very creative on the writer's point. When they go back to the beginning for Alpha and how she emerged into her role, wow. I agree. And I think that, if I'm not mistaken, I do believe that they had new writers for that season. And you could tell that the difference between season 8 and season 9. Season 9 captured more of that. It caught my interest again. To where I was saying, when they were on that last season with the Saviors, it just felt like, okay, we've been here for a while, you guys. Like I'm ready for something new. And they gave us that with season 9, and the way that they introduced the Whisperers, I think that it was absolutely fantastic. Like the way that you remember Rosita and Eugene were out and they were hiding themselves in the mud, laying on that side of that. It was almost like a muddy area before, like a creek or something, as they were walking by, and you could hear them whispering. And if it wasn't something that you were ready for, which I wasn't, because I've never read, that far into the comics, that I was just like, wow, this is super cool. And I mean, going back, as far as, Alpha's backstory. Yeah. And I mean, there was a lot of confusion with that too, because you were going back and some of it was from, her daughter's perspective, and it was kind of convoluted and a little, unsure of what was really going on, because you would see things happen one way and then you would see it happen another. And it was just, it was really cool. Wayne is saying Near Dark is another great vampire movie from the 80s. Got the 2-disc DVD edition. I don't know if I've probably seen it and I just don't remember the name. But I will definitely check that out. I actually love vampire movies. Russell is saying the first one is epic, but 2 and 3 still had Frog Brother Corey Feldman in it. It did. It did. And then which was the one that had Corey Haim come back at the end and he was actually a vampire? Was that 3? I think that was the last one that I saw. I wish Tubi had Near Dark. Yeah, that would be easy for me to actually watch that too. Russell is also saying, "I love the Whisperer story." I did too, and I feel like one of the things that the Whisperer story did was remove some of that plot armor, from our main characters, and fast. If you remember, Jesus right away. As soon as the Whisperers showed up, you lose a major character, and then getting later on, you lose more characters. I think that for a while after Glenn and I almost said Eugene, Glenn and Abraham's death, we didn't really get too many of the things happening to the main characters, and that was for quite a while. Now we were losing more of side characters, but as far as the main group of people, we weren't losing too much of that, and the plot armor was really noticeable after a while. Like, wow, okay. Teresa's saying, and I love Merle. What a jerk he was, and how he ended. That too, very creative. You hate him, and then you love him, and then he gets killed. And The Walking Dead was really good at that. They were really good at either making you really like a character or absolutely hate a character. And I think that's something that they do very well in the writing with that stuff, to make us feel the way we do about certain people. And I mean, I hate to keep going back to one character in particular, but if you go back to what they did with Negan, there are, now granted, there are some people that feel a certain way about Negan, and they will always feel that certain way because either they were big Glenn fans or big Abraham fans. But for the most part, or at least I can speak for myself, I feel like Negan's character arc was that of redemption. And I don't think that that's something that we get a whole lot of anymore, because people are so used to now saying somebody did something, let's just go ahead and hate them for it, that it really doesn't give you a chance uh, for that redemption arc. And I think that a redemption arc is definitely a good arc, and I think they did that really well with Negan. Russell is saying that was the Lost Boys 3. Okay, I thought so. I thought that was the third one. Wayne is saying, yep, the first sequel called The Lost Boys, The Tribe, with Kiefer Sutherland's younger brother in it. The third movie was The Lost Boys, The Thirst. Corey was back. Yeah, and he came back at the end. I do remember that. No, Corey Haim came back at the end of The Lost Boys 2 end of credits. Okay, I definitely have to check that out again, because it's been too long. I think that whichever one that Corey came back in, that was the last one I saw. Wayne is saying The Lost Boys, The Thirst, I have on Blu-ray, and it isn't that bad. The Tribe, though, is complete. That's awesome. Teresa saying, I've never seen The Lost Boys. Is it a vampire movie? Love a good vampire. Yes, and it is a great vampire movie. The original Lost Boys. It's got a lot of people in it that are really good. You got Corey Feldman, you got Corey Haim, you got Kiefer Sutherland, and it's just it's a good watch. I mean, and it still holds up today. Like, not perfectly, but it's still something that I can put in at any time and have a good time watching. Russell is saying, I believe the governor killed Merle also. Yeah, the governor was definitely responsible for Merle's death. And you kind of got to see through that exchange, how ruthless the governor really was. He was definitely one of the more ruthless villains. Not saying he was one of the strongest, but I mean, you got to think about, and every time I think about the governor and that little arc where he comes back for a while, it just makes me think of Herschel and how we lost Herschel. Like, that was a tough watch. I really liked the character of Herschel, who actually does make an appearance in season 9, which was awesome, by the way. Teresa saying, "Oh, Wayne, you have something to look forward to, the Walking Dead series. You got to watch it." Yeah, it's definitely a fun It's definitely a fun watch for sure. And it's getting what, 3 spin-offs that we're getting from it. So even though the story is over, it's not over. You know, it's still moving forward. Russell's also saying you definitely need to check out The Walking Dead, Wayne. Very, very fantastic series. It is. It is. And going back to what I was saying about season 9 and the introduction to the Whisperers, and you learn about Alpha, which Teresa was talking about a little earlier, and then you get the character Beta, and then Negan gets mixed in with them, and then the one thing that really hit me really hard in that season, well, not the only thing, of course, when Rick left, I was a mess. Like those flashbacks that he was getting before he went, I'm not even gonna lie, that kind of tore me up. Like to see Shane come back in a vision, and there are actors who can play characters who sometimes come back as a character, and you don't really feel like they're playing that character. It's just kind of like their face. When John Berthal came back to play Shane in that little dream sequence, it's like he never left. It's he was just right back to where Shane was. And not only, the look of the character, but the way he talked, like it felt like Shane, like 100% Shane. And that's testament to how good of an actor he is, to be able to come back and just jump right back into a role that you played so many years ago. I mean, you got to think this was season 9 and Shane was gone after season 2. So, that's a long time it's been since he played that character, and he jumped right back in there, and it was like Shane had never left. That actor jumped right back in to where he was Shane again. And it was just absolutely fantastic. It's like in Rick's mind, his mind immediately went to Shane for like strength. You know what I mean? Like it immediately went to Shane when he needed to be strong. And that's basically, what Shane did for him in that conversation. He basically told him, like, this is what I need from you. That's what I'm talking about. I need you. You remember when you ripped that guy's throat out? You remember that? He's like, that's what I need to see, and he's pumping Rick up, like you need to be strong. You need to, and of course, Rick's like, it needs to be me. And he's like, no, it needs to be me. You need to be like me to survive out here. And I mean, it's just funny that his mind went to Shane, to get that strength for what he needed to do. And then, it goes on to Herschel after that. And it's like that was heartbreaking in itself, that whole, dream sequence, seeing all those people that are gone, and seeing Herschel, I was just like, oh my God. Like even the way that Herschel was talking to him, he's like, talking about, Rick apologizing to him about how he died and crying and stuff and saying he could have did more to help Maggie. And Herschel's just being there like reassuring him, like, no. He's like, my daughter's strong, she's got my grandson. That's gonna make her even stronger. And that always stuck with me. Then you go to Sasha, you know what I mean? And it's just like seeing all these characters and Rick going back and seeing those things. I think that's what tore me up so much about that episode. And you get the dream sequence of them saving him on the bridge only to realize they're not really there. And it's wow, man. Like that episode, it's definitely one of my favorites of the season. And you also get the time jump after that, to where Judith is actually grown up a little bit. You don't realize once Rick is gone in that helicopter that this much time went by, and that Judith is there. Like I'm Judith, because she's got Rick's gun, a sword like Michonne's. She's ready to go. She's definitely ready to go. Russell is saying, I think Shane was taken out way too soon. He was a great actor. He definitely was. And I think I talked a little bit about that, on our last Walking Dead get together, to where I feel like I don't know if he left for another project or if, the show was just done with the character. I don't know the details around that, but if any of you guys do, definitely make sure to let me know on here because I agree. You could have taken Shane, pretty far into that. It's always good to have, a um little bit of, competition for Rick. But then again, in the third season, I wonder how Shane would have been after Carl had to kill Lori. And that's something that we never really talk about because Rick lost his mind when that happened. Not only did he lose his wife, his son was the one that had to put her down. And that's a mind job in itself. And I wonder how Shane would have reacted to that. Because he loved Lori a lot, So I'm just oh yeah, that's definitely something to think about as well. Wayne is saying, that Jackie Gleason was related to Jason Patric, and Jason Patric's father is in the original Exorcist. Jason Miller, Jason Patric from the Lost Boys had connect. Yeah, like I didn't know all that stuff either. I didn't no idea. Jason Patric was another one, in the Lost Boys that I didn't mention, earlier when I was going through the cast of the original. What a great cast in the original. Wayne is also saying, considering I love zombie movies, I certainly need to check out The Walking Dead. Thanks for the recommendation, people. Yeah, man, definitely. It's a fun watch. The first couple seasons, especially. There are a couple seasons where you have down seasons, but for the most part, when the story wraps up at the end, I'm glad I watched it, feeling. Russell is saying, well, The Exorcist new one is going to be called The Exorcist, The Believers, and it's a direct sequel to the original classic. Yeah, it's David Gordon Green as well, who did the Halloween film. So kind of interested to see where that goes. I know that they have done some casting for it, but I don't know much else than that current state. So definitely something I'd have to look into. And I'm definitely sure it's something that we'll cover on the channel moving forward because I know how many fans of The Exorcist that there are. That was a movie for me that I saw at a way, 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 way too young of an age to really. Yeah, it scared the hell out of me when I saw it. Then again, I was like 5 or 6, so probably watched that one a little too early in my life. But none of the other horror movies had scared me at that point. But that one definitely resonated with me and definitely um yeah, that's one I still have problems watching to this day. Wayne is saying, I hope the new one is good. I hope the new one is good too. That's I mean, the way I felt about David Gordon Green's Halloween movies, I feel like first two were good. The third one was bad. So hopefully, at least with The Exorcist, at least the first one should be good. Well, hopefully. Russell saying, I'm looking forward to it because Ellen Bernstein is returning to it. I actually did not know that. Teresa saying, not to mention, when talking about Rick lost his mind, now he also has a new baby to care for, right? That's true. So, I mean, let's say that Shane was alive and all that stuff still happened. How do you think he would have done in that situation, with Rick? Do you think that that might be something that brought Shane and Rick back together again? Or do you think there'd be one more thing to drive them apart to where, they'd be after each other? Definitely something I've never really thought about. Um, Never really thought about how that would have turned out. Like, I think that would have been pretty interesting to see. Wayne is also saying Alex Winter from Bill and Ted movies plays a vampire. Yes, he does. He sure does. Teresa is saying, anybody out there curious as I am to know Rick's story after getting swept away on the chopper? I am interested. And we're going to get to see it in Rick and Michonne. So We'll definitely, later on in the year, go back to that, and maybe we can do some predictions, right before it comes out on what we think it'll be, what we think happened, and then we'll actually kind of get to see it unfold and see how close we are to, from what we think is to which, what really happens. Jeff D'Angelo's here saying hello, everyone. What's up, Jeff? Always good to have you here, my man. And James has entered the chat. Who is directing the new Exorcist movie? I'd like to know. Well, that would be David Gordon Green from Halloween. He did the Halloween Blumhouse trilogy. So he did 18, he did Kills, and he did Ends. So those are the things that we've seen from him. And I know how much you love Ends, James. So I'm sure that you will absolutely love everything he does with The Exorcist. I am actually very hopeful that they're going to do, a lot of good things with that. And I'm very curious to see where, like, we know when it takes place, but I'm kind of curious to see, what transpires, if they go immediately to X amount of years later, or if they kind of like pick up, kind of like a flashback type deal. That they did with like they did in Halloween Kills, where they kind of had a flashback because they changed the story just a little bit. Very curious to see, what they do with that. Like, I'm looking forward to that too. Wayne Turner saying Andrew Lincoln coming back. Hopefully, no cards confessing his love for anyone. Yes, he is coming back for the Rick and Michonne show in early 2024. So I do know that they are filming that currently. They have released some screenshots, of some of the things going on there, but nothing in too much detail. What I do know is they've showed different pictures of Rick from like different stages, like some he has a big beard, some he doesn't have a beard. And I don't know if that's like some time jumping going on there, but I'm sure that it will. And they've shown Jadis being there. So we definitely know Rick, Michonne, and Jadis will all be in that show. Teresa saying, "Oh wow, I couldn't imagine Shane alive when the baby came and Lori died. Shane would have completely lost his mind." And I do think that you're right with that. But I mean, where does he put that anger? Does he blame Rick? Does he blame himself? There's like so many different directions that could go. And it's yeah, I definitely it's definitely hard to say, exactly what would have happened, after that happened if Shane was still there. Um, Really something to think about too. Like, what would that have been like? James is saying, awesome. Great to hear that. I'm definitely going to watch it. I am going to watch it too. I'm definitely going to watch The New Exorcist. Russell is saying Shane would blame Rick. I mean, ultimately, that's probably about right, because he's at that point, he's not happy with Rick anyway. And Rick is leading the group. I feel like, if Shane was still alive, they'd still be in that kind of similar place that they were in. But it's kind of hard to tell, what happens when you lose the motivation behind what you're fighting over. Shane's biggest thing with Rick was Lori. He was in love with Lori, but now, not only are they broken, that you're taking that out of the equation. So I'm wondering if that's something that they could have came back from with Lori not being there anymore. Definitely something to think about. Wayne is saying it's interesting that lots of English and Australian, where I am, oh, awesome, are dominating American TV and movies. Andrew Lincoln, the English actor. Yeah. And I mean, he's not the only one. There are a lot of English actors that are, playing Americans. And it's super cool. Russell saying Rick was in a coma at first, so why would he blame Rick? Well, I think that what we're saying, with that, and let me know, Russell, if I'm kind of going off of, if I'm, not exactly addressing what you're saying. So we were saying that if Rick didn't kill Shane at the end of season 2 and he was in season 3 still, like let's say that confrontation didn't happen with them and Shane went on to season 3, just like everybody else went to season 3 and they went to the prison and Lori was killed, would he still be mad, at Rick to say, would they still have that fight between them? Teresa's saying when Rick was talking to someone on the phone at the prison, at first I really thought he was talking to a person. I did too. I did. It took me a minute to put that together. Like I guess you can't really recognize voices too well, but once you kind of find out what's going on, it's like wow, how many different people did he talk to? I think it was like Lori. He talked to Shane. Who all else did he talk to? Was it Dale? I think he talked to Dale too, if I'm not mistaken. Wayne is saying if your name is Andrew, you must be English. Example, Andrew Garfield. Yeah, I like Andrew Garfield. A lot of people didn't like him as Spider-Man, but I actually did. I actually think that he was probably the best part out of the new Spider-Man movie that came out. And I think that they did his character very well in that. And I mean, that was something he deserved because his movies as Spider-Man weren't the greatest. I feel like that version of Spider-Man wasn't done as well as, Toby's and the new kid. What's his name again? James is asking this question to Teresa, and I'm actually curious to everyone. Who is your favorite character in The Walking Dead? That's definitely a tough one for me. I'll have to think about that for a minute. But I would like to know, from all you guys in the chat, for the ones that do watch, who your favorite character is in The Walking Dead and why. Russell is saying my favorite is Michonne. Michonne had probably one of the most badass intros to the show. If you think about, the original Michonne that showed up with the cloak on and she had the sword out and she had the two walkers with their arms and jaws cut off on chains behind her. I remember the first time I saw Michonne, I was just like, what? I was like, this is awesome. So I can definitely see Michonne being, someone's favorite character. And I mean, her development throughout the show was really well done too. She had a lot going on with her as well. Especially, she went from what she became like Carl's best friend, and then, Rick's love interest. And, her story kept progressing and she got stronger and stronger every season. I think Michonne was a fantastic character. Andrew Garfield is awesome. The Social Network, Never Let You Go, Spider-Man movies, Hacksaw Ridge. Yeah. And I mean, like, I'm not going to say any one was greater than the other, but he did freaking awesome in The Social Network, and I don't absolutely love that movie, but I think that it's decent. I think that it's a good movie. And I think Andrew did really well in it, especially that scene where he goes up and, the guys, I forget his name too. He goes in and he finds out that, he's being let go from the company. That whole dialogue that he has there is just freaking fantastic. He slams the computer down, and he lets him know that he's going to sue him and everything. I think that was great. I think Andrew did a great job in that movie. But back to going like my favorite character in Halloween, I almost said Halloween. Jesus, where's my mind at? In The Walking Dead. I'm still thinking about that one. Wayne is saying, how about the character that Jeffrey Dean Morgan played? Are you talking about in The Walking Dead? Are you talking about Negan? He's up there for me. Definitely. Definitely. And I mean, we saw like, Yeah, Negan went from one side of the extreme to the other throughout that show. And it was almost like, and I think that I think it was the final episode of season 10, I want to say, where it was the whole show about Negan that kind of really brought, everything into perspective for him. You saw the changes that were being made. But I don't think that you really, really realized the degree of change that he went through until that episode. Teresa's saying, LOL, Negan, of course. He's up there with Skeet. You and Skeet, I swear to God. Jesus. Um, yeah, I mean, Negan is freaking awesome. Wayne is saying Negan with his warm welcome. Yeah, he definitely had a warm welcome to the show, didn't he? Russell said, or are you talking about John Winchester, Wayne? Yeah. Oh, John Winchester. James is saying, I like Negan and his best friend, Lucille. Yeah. Yeah. Jeff D'Angelo, I liked Negan in the beginning when he was a badass. Then they made him into a wimp. I don't really think that. I mean, I can see what you're saying, but I think that it was more of like he like grew, as a person. Like he didn't. I really think that if you gave him a bat, he could still beat the holy hell out of someone, and would, but I think for different reasons than he had, in the beginning. He just grew a lot as a person, and he started, I think that a lot of the way Negan was in reaction to to losing his wife, and not so much of, him just being, a really bad person. Because he was a bad person, but you could see the little interjections of good that he had with that character. Teresa is saying, who is your favorite, Michael? And this is something that I'm, trying to delay answering for the simple fact that, I mean, Negan is definitely up there, but I really liked Rick too. I think that Rick was a good character. Negan, God, I don't know, Teresa. I'm just gonna say I don't know. I've got a couple in there that I really liked as characters. Um, I would almost have to say, who. Well, no, I couldn't even do it that way. I'll definitely have to think about it. By the time the show's over, I will say an answer, but not saying it wasn't going to change. Russell is saying Lucille was named after his wife. It was, like that's why he was so, if anyone ever touched Lucille, he kind of like freaked out. He didn't like anybody else touching Lucille. Wayne is saying, I never watched the show, but I read bits about it. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely different, especially when it first came out. Teresa's saying, oh, gang, what about the episode where they went back to tell Negan's history? Another amazing written part. Yeah. And that's what I was talking about, a few minutes ago. Well, it was his, I always call it the Negan episode. I don't remember exactly what it was called, but, you got so many flashbacks of flashbacks of flashbacks of flashbacks in that, to where it kind of gave the viewers, that way of connecting with Negan to kind of see where he was coming from and why he thought the way he did. Give him a baseball bat and he will show you how bad he could be. And he definitely did that. But I think that, in the show, one of my favorite parts was, when he did get his bat back and he broke it as soon as he hit that walker. And then he threw it into the, getting ready to throw it into the fire. And he had the older version of him sitting there, taunting him. He's sitting there, at the fire, and you just hear in the background, little pig, let me in. And he just turns around, the old version of him sitting there, and they have that dialogue back and forth. And I think that that's, a big sign of, Negan growing, because he looked at him, he's like, "You're a joke." Is he was moving past that part of his life. But Negan always had that little bit of, he still has that in him. If you remember when that episode ends, he's walking back into Alexandria, and Carol comes up to him like, "Look, I tried to help. Your blood isn't on my hands." And he's like, "I'll take it." And he goes walking in and just looks over at Maggie and still has that smile on his face. So there's still a little bit of that in there. Russell is saying they didn't make Negan weak. They just toned him down. He is always a badass, though, and he was like that at the beginning because he lost his wife. And yeah, I agree with that. Teresa's saying, yes, that bat took a beating. It did. It did. Teresa's saying, in all honesty, I think Rick was the glue. I do. But because you got to remember when Rick was gone, and they did that flash forward of 5 years, the group's divided. Michonne had Alexandria doing their own thing. The Hilltop was doing their own thing. Oceanside was doing their own thing. They split up, and it took even the Kingdom, so they were doing their own thing too. It took them all to, go through some stuff to come together again, because once Rick left, it did divide them. Wayne is saying, did Rick ever confess his love for his best friend's wife? No, that was Shane to Rick's wife. If we're talking about the same thing. So the Lori was Rick's wife, and Shane was the one that, loved her. Russell is saying Negan was falling in love with Maggie. Do you think that they will be a couple eventually, or do you think Maggie will get revenge for Glenn? That's a tough one. That's definitely a tough one, because Negan, he has a wife, and he has, she was pregnant with their kid, and I'm assuming this is going to take place some 5 years after The Walking Dead, and I'm sure that kid will be born. But I mean, unless something happens to her, I don't know. That's one thing. Yeah, I don't know how they do that, Russell. It's definitely something to think about. Teresa saying it was so darn sad when Negan returned home and his wife had turned. Yeah, it was. And I mean, she had that bag over her head too, and you could see like the pills and stuff, and it was just like, yeah, that was tough. But I mean, if you see the symbolism and what happened with him, he burned the place down, and he comes walking out the front as it's burning down, kicks the door down, and comes walking out. It kind of had that symbolism moment where it's like forged by fire. It's Negan. You know what I mean? Like he was like born again. He was somebody different, because he immediately gets on his bike and goes back to that bar, those guys that had him tied up, beating the hell out of him. And he goes in there and just destroys that place. I thought that was really cool too. That's when you finally see, Negan be Negan for the first time. He walks in and he just starts talking to the guy that had him tied up in the chair. And it was just like, oh, here we go. He's monologuing. This is where this started. Russell is saying that was very intense, Teresa, and that was his real wife in real life too. It was. That I can confirm. That is correct. Jeff is saying, Russell, I think Maggie will get her revenge. If Maggie doesn't, I think the kid will. Hey, I can't argue with that. Because I remember, if you remember in the last season of The Walking Dead, when Negan saves Herschel, and Herschel pulls that gun on him. It's like my mom told me a bad man killed my dad. He said, "Did you kill my dad?" And he said, "Yeah." And Herschel ends up putting the gun down. He said, "You know what? I'll make you a deal. You grow up, you come see me." So, I mean, it's just who knows where they could go with that. They could never do anything with that again, or, that could have been the start of something. James is saying one tough old Louisville slugger she was. She was. And I mean, she had a lot of numbers on her too. So he definitely took out quite a few people with those bats or with that bat. Yeah, Maggie's son could get revenge. You never know. It is possible. It is possible. Wayne is saying, what are the names of all the Walking Dead shows, including those coming soon? How many seasons are there for the ones that are finished? Well, there's The Walking Dead, and then there was Fear the Walking Dead. But I wasn't a fan of Fear. And I know there were a couple other spin-offs too that I didn't watch. The only one that I watched all the way through was the original, The Walking Dead. And there were 11 seasons to that. Teresa's saying, was Negan falling for Maggie? I didn't catch that. I really didn't see that either. I felt it was more of like the way he felt was just apologetic and he felt bad about what he did, but I didn't catch, them being that he was falling in love with her because, he loved his wife, his pregnant wife at the time. So, I mean, not just it could have been something that I missed, and just didn't catch, but I didn't feel that. But then again, I could be wrong. Russell saying yes, he was. Well, I mean, I watched all the way through for a second time. How did I not catch that? I don't know. It's something I'll have to look into because now you have me curious about it. James is saying, I felt sorry for Negan. No wonder he was ruthless and cold hearted. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that guy, he went through a lot. And I mean, if you watch that 10th season last episode, the Negan episode, it kind of gives you, a backstory on gives you a backstory on how he became who he was. And you hate to say that you can see why he did what he did, but I mean, depending on how you react to, things that have been taken away from you, I mean, anybody could be a Negan for, those things happening in current state of the world that they were living in. Teresa's saying, oh my goodness, I did not know that his wife was in real. Yeah. Yeah, that was his wife in real life. Yeah, it really was. I don't know. We've talked about some good stuff here today, you guys. Still haven't really got to touch too much on the whispers though. And that's I probably because it's so fresh in my head, that's something that, really I really enjoyed. And I don't feel like that they push that out, like it wasn't as drawn out as the Savior storyline was. And I think I appreciated that. And I mean, you really think about it too, as much as, we talk about Negan on these streams and as, much at the end of the day, who's responsible for putting an end to it? Again, it's Negan. He was the one that got in there. And I mean, not only that, but I loved his back and forth with Beta. They were like two people that had nothing to do with each other, wanted nothing to do with each other. And I think that it was very creative for, the people making the show for those two to interact with each other. Two totally different opposite sides of the, spectrum being thrown together. And, and even Alpha, she knew that Negan was definitely, valuable to have as one of the Whispers. Russell is saying, I think everyone should check out the Hannibal TV series. It's very intense and good. I absolutely loved the Hannibal TV series. I think I binged it, but I think it's been about 2 years since I've seen it. It kind of ended with a cliffhanger. And when I say a cliffhanger, I mean a literal cliffhanger. There was a cliff and everything. Teresa's agreeing. Oh yes, Hannibal TV series was really, really good. It was. It was. Russell is saying, I love how Negan set up Alpha. Very awesome. It was. And I mean, what was her daughter's name again? I always forget her daughter's name. But even keeping her in the dark with it, you know, he did it right. He did a good job. And, you know, and it, as shocking as it was, you know, that it happened, it was even more shocking to find out that, you know, Carol was behind it, which is somewhat aggravating considering, you know, what she had done in the cave. It was just like, why did you do all that shit in the cave if you had this going on? Jeff saying, I'll catch you all Sunday. Break's over. I got to go back to work. All right, Jeff, you have a good one, buddy. And I appreciate you coming and hanging out with us. Definitely. I hope you have a great day, sir. But yeah, so I don't know. Carol was probably the late season 9, season 10 Andrea for me. You know, it was just like, she was definitely, Carol wasn't, well, I guess, you know, when she lost you know, her son, you know, I guess that kind of made her go crazy and she wasn't thinking clear, but you know, it definitely impacted her to the point to where even Daryl was like, look, you don't even know what you're doing anymore. Like I can't even, you know, deal with you. And for Daryl to get, you know, pushed that far, you know, and then we also got introduced to the new group that season too. You know, we got a lot of good characters. You know, Connie, her sister, Kumiko, um, and the other two. I always forget their names. The one that ended up in Oceanside and what's her name's girlfriend. I mean, I thought that was a good introduction of people. I thought that they were a good group. Teresa is saying Lydia. Yes, it was Lydia. I always forget her name for some reason. I don't know why. But I mean, even through Lydia learning about, you know, Alpha and, you know, what kind of person she really was, that was definitely a tough, that was a creative story arc. And she really, you know, learning through her, the way that they wrote it, you know, Alpha was tough. I mean, Negan really had to trick her to get that done because I don't think anybody else could have really got that done. Although her and Daryl did have a good fight. But I'm honestly, it wasn't really looking too great for Daryl either when they did have that fight. I mean, so yeah, it was definitely good. Something I did want to let you guys know that I have coming up here. I talked a little bit about it last time. That I will be streaming on Twitch as well. So I will definitely put my Twitch up here for anyone who goes over there. I'm thinking about playing some Friday the 13th over there. I'm thinking about doing that, playing some of the Friday the 13th, the game. I'm not great at it. It's not like I game a whole lot, but it's more of a, you know, let's just hang out and bullshit. And I'll try not to get killed by Jason, or if I'm Jason, I'll try to kill people. It'll be kind of fun. I may do that over there for a little while here soon. And I'll definitely make sure that in my community tab, that I put a link up for my channel because I don't really know what that is off the top of my head. Let me look at it. And then, you know, there's a whole process of me learning out Twitch over there because I don't know too terribly much about it. Let's see if it lets me do this. Oh yeah, easy. So I will put that up in the chat. Just so we have that here. And I'll also put it up in the community tab so people know to look for me over there. But I actually may mess around with that, you know, some tonight. I'll have actually have a little bit of time tonight, so I may do that. I will be watching the NFL, a little bit of the NFL draft as well, um, but yeah, I definitely want to mention that to you guys. Lawrence Fishburne and Catherine Isabel and Gillian Anderson, aka Scully from the X Files, is in the Hannibal TV series. Yeah. Teresa is saying, I wasn't sure at first what Negan was doing interacting with the Whisperers, but it's so great roping in Alpha. It was. It definitely was. Teresa's also saying the cast of Hannibal series was truly great. It was, and I always forget the guy's name, and it's not like for some reason it just doesn't stick with me. But I think there's actually been a few times where people have helped me out on my streams, like what his name is again. But the guy who played Hannibal was he did fantastic with that, and I know he's been in other stuff too. I remember he was in Star Wars Rogue One. He's been in quite a few things. But definitely a great actor playing Hannibal. Wayne is saying, can you do the Crispin Glover dance in Friday the 13th game? No, you can't. But if you could, I would probably nonstop be that character. Definitely nonstop be that character. It would actually be fun. Russell is saying, well, he had to fall in love with Alpha to get her. Well, he had to make her fall in love with him, but I don't think that Alpha loved him. I think that she was just, it's kind of tough to say with Alpha. It really is tough to say. She was definitely a different kind of different. I'll say that about her for sure. But yeah, I definitely want to do this again sometime soon. Get into more of this Walking Dead stuff, and we'll definitely get into it more too. Right before the show comes out. I think we got about another month and a half before that happens. But I want to do a couple more of these Walking Dead streams before that comes out. I want us all to be fresh. I want us all to know exactly what's going on prior to the show starting, and I can't wait for that new show to come out. I have a feeling it might start off a little slow, but I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with the slow burns. I don't think that you can just jump right into something and it be crazy at the beginning and then be able to keep that pace throughout the show. So I don't mind the slow burn because we don't really have to get introduced to a lot of these characters yet or anymore because we know who they are. But I'm sure that we will get plenty of new characters throughout this that we will have to take some time to be introduced to so we can build that connection that The Walking Dead did so well with the original, for us to build that connection and actually care about these characters. So I think that that'll come through a lot through Maggie and Negan and Herschel. Those are, three that we know of for sure that are going to be in the show. And you guys know they're going to have cameos. So I almost feel like, there's going to be plenty of cameos throughout, plenty of references of stuff that we need to know, that we're going to get to know and everything. I think it's going to be great. Russell's saying it was very strange. It was very strange. I will say that. Yeah, it definitely was. Russell's saying, what do you think about the new Alien game coming out? It looks so good. Russell, I have not checked that out yet. I will definitely check that out for sure because I love Alien. Wayne is saying, what's the new show called? The Negan and Maggie show, I believe, is called Dead City. So that's the first one, the one that comes out in June. I'm not really sure. Did they give a release date on Daryl's new show yet? Let me look that up to see if they did. Oh, they're only showing. Is there a Daryl spinoff? It's supposed to be later in 2023, but it's not giving a name to the show yet. The Daryl one is, and Rick and Michonne, they haven't. Their show hasn't been named yet either. Yeah, so we do know it's late 2023, but I don't know what Daryl's show is called or Rick and Michonne's show yet. I think there's one. Yeah, Dead City. That's Negan and Maggie. Russell's saying there are three. Yes, yes. Three new shows: Daryl and Maggie and Negan, the Daryl Show, and Rick and Michonne Show. So those are definitely the new ones coming out. But yeah, I think I'm gonna play around a little bit on Twitch tonight. So I'll be hanging out over there for a while. But again, you guys, I have always such a good time with doing this, and hopefully I get these technical difficulties taken care of, because this is a third stream in a row where I keep getting put on mute for some reason, and I'd love to really figure that out. Um, but I'll look into the settings and stuff and see if there's something that's doing it intentionally, or if I have a setting on that shouldn't be there, and I'll get that taken care of. But definitely, until I do, keep reminding me in the chat, like if I am muted and it's not showing on my screen like it wasn't today, that I'll be looking out for that. Teresa is saying that one of the shows with Negan and Maggie, the one with Rick and Michonne, the one with Daryl solo, I will look up the titles and tell you next show. Yeah, I don't know that if Daryl and Rick and Michonne's are even titled yet. But I appreciate you looking into that for me, because I want to know. I definitely want to know. But that's pretty much going to wrap up today's show for us, guys. I usually like to go for about 45 minutes to an hour. We went a little bit over today, but I never mind going over with you guys. It's always so much fun to be here. Like I said, I'm going to go over to Twitch for a little while. I'm going to mess around with that. I'm sure that'll be an absolute nightmare until I figure all that stuff out. So I left a link in there. If it is something that you mess around with, definitely check me out over there. And I look forward to next time. And I will be looking tomorrow in my community tab, because I think I have a big announcement that I really wanted to make tonight for you guys, to let you guys know something that's happening very soon. But I want one more confirmation to make it. It's 99% right now, and I just want to have one more conversation to make sure it's the full 100 before I announce it. But it has to do with our show this coming Sunday. That's why there's not a thumbnail up already. So I'm super excited to let you guys know, and I will definitely let you guys know in the community tab, hopefully by tomorrow morning. And then there'll be a new thumbnail up for Sunday's show, and it's really big, and it's gonna be fun. Wayne is saying there was talk of the Lost Boys show, but it never happened. Yeah, they do a lot of that with a lot of shows. James is saying, I love those xenomorph aliens. Rock the game rocks too. I can't wait. Wayne is saying R.I.P. Jerry Springer. Yeah, I read that right before I came on. It's sad. I mean, that was a crazy show I used to watch, when I was younger. You come home and you'd want to see something crazy. You always had the Jerry Springer show. Russell saying the Lost Boys TV series got canceled before it even started. It was supposed to be on CW. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if they would have did it, justice on something like the CW. I'd almost want to see that on like HBO Max or something, because you'd think about how toned down it'd have to be for the CW. Wayne is saying, thanks for having me, dude. You are always welcome here. And we definitely go live every Sunday. So definitely looking forward to seeing you guys Sunday. It will be a blast. And then I'll do a few more live streams. Oh, and the new Flash trailer dropped today, which I did film a reaction to, but I still have to edit. I will try to get that up by tomorrow. That looks freaking crazy. But I'll not talk about it to let you guys see my reaction video to that. Definitely can't wait for that to come out. Teresa's saying, great show. Hey, thank you, Teresa. I had a great time with you guys. James is saying, great to see you again, Mike. Hope to see you this weekend along with Matt, his mom, and his dad. I will be there this weekend, James. I will stop by and say what's up to you. And Russell is saying Jerry Springer was 79. Yes, he was. R.I.P. Jerry Springer. But yeah. So I am out of here today, you guys. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. And as always, I will see you next time.